We've got schools everywhere, and it's really exciting to see all of your faces. I can see them now. So just one more minute. Okay, I can see myself playing on the screen. Sorry, we just got our tech people sorting all this out. And I'd also like to say a huge hello to everybody who's watching the YouTube live stream. So I know we have some schools. I know we have some schools in Queensland who are joining us via YouTube. We've got some schools in different places across the country who are watching the YouTube stream. So welcome, and we're really excited that you can join us today as well. We're just going to wait for another 30 seconds for everybody to get organized, get ready, maybe start thinking about who you would like to read your writing, because that's one of the questions I'm going to ask you a little bit later. So start thinking about anybody in the world who could read your writing. Who would that be? We're just going to wait for the last few people to make sure they're logged in, their volume's on, their pencils and paper ready, just like James is showing you. And then we'll kick off.
Jo, can I ask one more question? I can hear the dishwasher being unloaded in my house, and I'm just wondering if that is going through to the to the whole recording. Can you hear a clattering of dishes? We can hear the dishes. Okay, 1 minute, please. George, do you mind not unloading the dishwasher right now? That's okay, we just started. There, that's what you get when you live in a very busy house with lots of people. And I've asked the dishwasher if it could please just listen quietly now, and I will help unload it later. That's the best thing about doing it with James here.
All right. Thank you, Wendy and James. Welcome, everybody. My name's Jo, and I will be taking you through the next week of author workshops as part of our mini writing festival. Welcome to day one. We've just kicked off early this morning with Andrew Daddo. So some of you might have been part of that session, but I know for a lot of you, this is your first session for the week. We're really excited that you're here to join us. And our authors and illustrators are so excited to work with you throughout this week. They're excited to be able to come into your schools via your screens and guide you through some of their ways that they write stories and draw illustrations and really bring their writing to life. So thank you to everybody who's joining us. Thank you, teachers, for getting your schools on board and being part of this amazing festival. As I said a few minutes ago, we have got schools joining us on the live workshop and watching us on the YouTube stream from across the whole country. So welcome. We might have a quick look at everybody who's joining us. Give us a wave. Hi, everyone. So great to see everybody ready. Lots of smiling faces. Wow. Lots of pens and paper ready so you can write along with Wendy and James this morning. Okay, before I introduce Wendy Orr, I am going to whiz across the other side of the country to where I am, to James Foley, who's in Perth today. James Foley is an author and illustrator. You may have read some of his books that he's written and illustrated. James told me last week that he has 4 new books out this year. So look out for the new Toffle Towers book, Chickenosaurus, lots of other books that to get you hooked into reading that James has written and illustrated. James, thank you for joining us. We're really excited that you're going to be drawing and illustrating some of the things that Wendy will be talking about this morning, and really bringing to life some of the ideas that she'll be discussing with the kids. So
no problems. Thanks for having me. I'm actually in the past. It's 8:30 here in Perth. So how is the future, everyone? Is everything okay? It's lovely to be here.
And I'm wondering if we've got some of our WA schools on board. They weren't quite going to join us for the first session of the day. James had to get up early, but I'm not sure teachers over in WA were wanting to get up that early. But I think we might have some joining us now, probably even before their bell has gone to start the day. So welcome to anybody who's over in WA. Great way to start the week, bright and early. Okay, I am going to now welcome our author for the first workshop of the week, and that is Wendy Orr. Now, Wendy has written over 40 books for adults, teenagers, and kids. Wendy has written one of my personal favourite books, and a book that every time I teach, usually year 3 and 4, it's a book that I love to read to the kids and to teach and to do a whole term's worth of work based around, and that is Nim's Island. Now, some of you might be going, oh, I've seen the movie of Nim, and hopefully lots of you have read the book Nim's Island, and if you haven't, you really should check it out, especially if you like adventure stories and stories that can take you to other places. Now, Nim is turning, I think I'm right, Wendy, turning 21 this year. Nim's Island was written 21 years ago, and 21st birthdays are pretty special. So we're excited that Wendy can be part of the Little Scribe Mini Writing Festival to celebrate Nim's 21st birthday. Welcome, Wendy, who is not quite as far away as James from us, but she is down in Victoria. So any schools in Victoria, Wendy's your neighbour and she's there with you today. So welcome, Wendy.
Wow. Well, it really is exciting. I mean, it's just really almost unbelievable to be talking to kids all around the country at the same time. And yeah, it's also unbelievable that Nim's Island is 21. I'm saying Nim's 21 because to me she's a real girl, but the book itself is 21. So
excellent. So Wendy, we're going to kick off soon and you're going to talk to the kids around the country about Nim's Island and some writing challenges that you have for them today. But before we start, we are talking to kids throughout the week about how to use really interesting, different, exciting words in their writing. Now, I know a lot of you watching might have done some work last week with your teachers on some of your favourite words to use in your writing. Or if you didn't do it last week, I'm pretty sure you would have been working for the start of this year on really pushing yourself and trying some different words, banning the boring words. So we're finding other ways to say good or bad or said or went, and really trying to make your writing more interesting for the reader. So Wendy, I'm going to start with a little challenge for you. Can you think of 3 of your favourite words that you like to use in your writing? What do you think? 3 favourite words.
Well, I'm going to choose, I don't even know if I use them all the time in my writing, but I'm going to choose 3 favourite words about characters, since that's what we're doing. I love the word inquisitive, which is really another way of saying curious. And I like the word curious, but inquisitive, I think I like cue words. They're kind of interesting. And when you say inquisitive, you can imagine somebody really trying to figure things out. So that's why I like that. And another one is nimble. And I don't know if that might be even partly why I came up with the name Nim. Nimble means, it's like agile. It's good at doing things physically, but it's not quite the same as athletic. It's somebody who could maybe climb into different things, climb a tree, climb different things. And so I just think it's a really neat word. And the other one I'm going to choose is heroic. And that I might not use that word in the story, but it would be in my mind. To me, heroic is more than brave. It's more than courageous. Heroic is pushing yourself, often to help, mostly to help other people more than just yourself, doing something doing something that you didn't know you could do. And this is a real problem working with James because he makes me laugh, which is a pretty lovely thing always. So those are the 3 words I'm going to choose, Jo.
Okay, inquisitive, nimble, and heroic. So kids watching, first challenge is to listen for Wendy throughout her workshop to see if she uses those 3 words. And next challenge is when you do your writing after this workshop, see if you can use those 3 words in your own writing, and see if that has an impact. Maybe they're words you've used before, maybe not. Maybe you'll have to really think about ways you can use those words. So that's challenge number 1 today. Now I'm going to hand over to Wendy in a minute, who is going to talk us through some ideas and some ways to create a character, and possibly even a new character for one of her books. So think about what Wendy's talking about. Have your pens and paper ready, because there will be times that Wendy will stop and actually give you time to write and draw your ideas down. So make sure you've got everything ready. If you don't have pens and paper, that's okay. That might be a time to be discussing your ideas with your friends who are sitting near you. So I'll hand over to Wendy. Keep an eye out for James. James might give you some good ideas. I'm not sure, James, we're writing about Nimble Island, but maybe it's like a very nimble island. So be watching James and listening to Wendy, and have pens and paper ready. So Wendy, thank you so much. I'll hand over to you.
Thank you. Well, we talked about maybe creating a friend for Nim, but I'm aware that of course, not everybody has read Nim. So I'm going to read you the first little bit, and I want you to think about who Nim is as I read this. And you can just listen, you can draw, or you can jot down a word that comes into your mind. That's up to you. This isn't the time that we talked about of having your own time to write. And I'm using this cover today because my bookshelves got rearranged and I can't find my Australian cover. In a palm tree on an island in the middle of the wide blue sea was a girl. Nim's hair was wild, her eyes were bright, and around her neck she wore 3 cords, one for a spyglass, one for a whirly whistling shell, and the other a fat red pocket knife in a sheath. With the spyglass at her eye, she watched her father's boat. It sailed out through the reef to the deeper dark ocean. Jack turned to wave, and Nim waved back, though she knew he couldn't see. Then the white sails caught the wind and blew him out of sight, and Nim was alone. For 3 days and 3 nights, whatever happened or needed doing, Nim would do it. And what we need first, said Nim, is breakfast. So she threw 4 ripe coconuts thump into the sand and climbed down after them. From a rock by the hut, Fred came scuttling. Fred was an iguana, spiky as a dragon, with a cheerful snub nose. He stared at the coconuts. Coconuts are tricky to open, but Nim was an expert. With a rock and a spike, she punched a hole and drank the juice, cracked the shell and prized out the flesh. Fred snatched his piece and gulped it down. And from out for the rocks where the sea lions were fishing, Selkie came. She started flopping up the beach, but Nim shouted, "We'll come in too," and dived off the rocks. Selkie twisted and shot up underneath, gliding Nim through the waves, thumping over, ducking under. Nim clung tight till she was half sea lion and half girl, and all of her was part ocean. So I'm hoping that from that, you will get a picture of Nim, because what I've tried to do is to show you by her actions what she's like, more than saying Nim was a brave and inquisitive and nimble girl. We don't know yet if she's heroic. So James has come up with a girl standing on a, I'm glad that tree is bending over like that, James, because that looks quite tricky to me.
I'm a bit worried that it's going to fling back and she's going to go flying over the other side of the island.
This is the new catapult weapon, certainly, if you have a flying Nim. Luckily, Nim's pretty good. I can imagine Nim actually is going to jump down, because she is so nimble and athletic, and actually grab that trunk before it flips her and then swing down. So I think she'll be okay. So what do you think of just when I say the girl is in a palm tree on an island in the middle of the wide blue sea? Now, I'm hoping that that gives you quite a few ideas about what she's like. So can you jot down, I think we only need a minute for this, Joe, 3 words about what you think about Nim, just from that. It's a girl in a palm tree and the island's in the middle of the wide blue sea.
Okay, so 3 words. What do you think of? So we'll just give you, I think, 30 seconds. Remember, if you don't have pencil and paper in front of you, share those 3 words with the person sitting near you. 3 words. What do you first think of? And Wendy, are we worried about spelling at this point, or do we just want people to write their words down? Oh my
goodness, no. The only important thing about spelling and handwriting is that it's good enough that you can figure out what you meant to say later on. And that's a big problem I have, that often I can't figure out what I meant to say when I write notes on my manuscript or when I write it by hand. So try and just make it so that you can figure out what you meant. And if you're writing down a sentence, you don't have to put the girl was in the tree. You can just put girl, tree, whatever's going to make you remember, because this is a workshop. It's not producing a book right this instant. Joe, did you come up with any words?
Oh, Wendy, you're putting me on the spot here. I'm going to look at everybody else's words. So I'm going to ask everybody to hold up their paper or their whiteboards or whatever you've been writing on. Let's do a quick whiz around the country. I don't know how clearly we'll be able to see the words, but let's hold them up and see if we can see any of them. Oh, excellent. Oh, I think they've written more than 3 words. Wendy.
My goodness, these guys are champions.
Okay, hold that one up again. Not quite. Almost saw it. Oh, I can see she is heroic. So someone's using your words already, Wendy.
Yes, and
lots
was that
of words here. I can see
thought?
Adventurous. Let's have a look. Brave, excited. Some excellent words. So even just from the very start of your
courageous, yes,
your story and introducing Nim, we've got some great words. We'll have one more look. If you're near the computer or near the camera, hold your paper really close. Oh, outgoing, curious, and adventure.
Yes. Okay. So these are
amazing, cool, brave. Some really, really good, courageous. Oh, thank you, everybody.
This is
all right. So words down.
Because what I really like.
Carry on with the next part, Wendy. They're definitely all ready to write.
They certainly are. And magnanimous. Well, that is a wonderful word. It may not be what we're showing right now, but I think it is a most fantastic word that you should definitely put into your story somewhere. So if we jump to the next little part, she's watching her father's boat sail away for 3 days and 3 nights, and whatever happened or needed doing, Nim would do it. So what we can think of more things with that, but I'm just thinking what we might do is not share them. I might come up with a couple that I think you might think of from this, so that we don't run out of time for everything. So again, we might think again that she's brave, that she's courageous, that she is even a bit heroic to be on the island by herself. Great. But I'm also thinking that as well as being, I think you could say, independent, resourceful, self-reliant. That's not a very nice sounding word, but it's something that you might think about. Isolated. Yes. I think that although Nim is putting on a brave front, even to herself, she might be feeling isolated, lonely, a little bit anxious, uncertain, even a little bit afraid. So sometimes our characters show us one thing, but we have to go deeper and think, is that the only thing she's feeling? And yes, she's definitely agile and athletic. If we think about what those hidden fears are, we're going to be a bit mean to Nim now. We've got that she's athletic, brave, courageous, heroic, independent, resourceful, all those wonderful things. But I'm going to give you, I think just 30 seconds again is all we need, because one thing I want you to know, anything that we ask in these workshops, there are no right and wrong answers. So there are just the things that you think of when you are reading a story or writing a story. Because when you're reading a story, you're creating it with the author. What do you think that Nim's biggest fear might be?
Okay, that's a really good question, Wendy, and something that requires a little bit more thought, I think, than describing Nim. So even if you haven't read Nim's Island, you've heard Wendy say the start of it, what would be her biggest fear?
And so what we're going to do,
writing down a few.
I think I'm
like
going
Wendy
to just
said,
read
no right or wrong answers.
And Joe, how about if I read a couple of things that are coming up on the chat that I think we can work with, because everybody has different ideas, of course, but several people have said being alone. Yes, and she already is alone, but she might be afraid of being more alone. And then other people are losing her dad. Yes, I think that from what I've read to you, she might be afraid of snakes and spiders, but feeling abandoned. And James, there are no wrong answers. So clowns is great, but it's unlikely when she's alone on the island. So I think we're going to think about, for the sake of this one, from what we've shown here, Nim might be afraid of losing her dad, of being completely alone. And you can then tie in all the other things that you have thought of: starvation, storms, water, falling into the ocean, falling off the palm tree, not being good enough. So these are all really great things that you can tie into when you write a story. So all I want to show you here is that from a very short bit, without saying the things, you can show what your character is thinking. But we're not just going to give her a fear. So you've done a great job on fear. We're going to move on to everybody needs a superpower. So I don't mean a superpower like she can fly. Now, if you really want your character to have a superpower that's magic, you can. But we all have our own superpowers. We all have our big fears, but we all have a superpower that is what makes us get through each day and do the heroic things. So Nim's superpower might be her agility, her being nimble, but it might be her strength of mind. It might be her imagination. Grit. Yes, I love that. So 30 seconds again for thinking of her superpower. Yes, her agility.
Wendy, what's your superpower?
I think it's when I remember, I'm very bad at forgetting my superpower and forgetting how to do it. And I think my superpower is going into myself and finding answers. But sometimes when I get busy, I forget that you have to be quiet to do that and not run around doing 8 million things at once and say, oh no, I have a deadline. I can't stop to think. So I think that is mine. And also love. That's one everybody can have, but it's one that's very important. Her laser eyes.
What's your superpower?
Communicating with animals. So yes, creating food, yeah, and being brave, speedy, and confident. Now you see what's happening. You are already creating your own Nim character from what you've heard already. And as I said, when we read a story, we create it with the author. So there are so many good ones here. Her survival skills, her curiosity, controlling the water, her talking to the animals. And certainly, I think the way that she communicates with the animals is a very important thing for Nim. So I think the ability to acclimatize to any climate, that's a great one, and resilient. And not giving up, which are two slightly different things. They are superpowers that we all need. Wow, you guys are amazing. I wish that we had like a whole day to talk about all of these things, but we don't. So we're going to quickly move on to her human friend. And because I figured she has enough curious creatures in her life already. You met two of them, the marine iguana and the sea lion. So now we need a friend who may or may not have a wild mind. And I think, so the first thing we'll decide, I'll let James choose, is her human friend going to be a boy or a girl?
Let's make them a boy.
Boy, I thought you might choose boy. And what shall we name boy? Or is he just boy for now and everybody gets to choose their own name later?
Yeah.
Okay, boy. I like the name boy. Okay, when you write your own story, friend can be a girl. Right now we're doing boy because James has the pencil, so he gets to be the boss of that. So what we need to think of is not just the things that we did with Nim, but knowing what you know about Nim, her friend might be very like her, because often your friends are quite like you. But to make a story interesting, you want to not have just two friends who are just alike. Two girls who are brave and adventurous and are nice to each other all the time, or even a boy who's brave and adventurous and good at climbing. So we're going to think of some ways that they might be different, but those differences might kind of match in a funny way. So at first we think, oh, these two are never going to be friends, but they are, because maybe they're alike in the fact that they're both good people. They're both kind people, but maybe some of the other things are different. So now Nim lives in an island on her own. So where might her friend come from? I mean, so no more guesses for the name. We'll keep that for later. But where might her friend come? How could her friend be different? Nim lives alone on an island with her dad. What might we do for a friend who comes from where? Paris. Well, that's an interesting one. Or Africa. There may have been a shipwreck. Yes. Okay. So, boy, I like the shipwreck. That's a great reason for him to get there. So we'll give him the shipwreck. And so he might come from Madagascar. So we're choosing places, I think, where it's a busy place. And so maybe he was on a cruise ship with lots of other people, or he stowed away on a cargo ship with lots of people. Nim is an only child. She just has a dad and no brothers or sisters. And what do you think about Boy? Should we give Boy a big family? Now, for some reason, to make your story interesting, Boy, I think, will probably turn up on his own. But Boy comes from a big family. And now is when you need your pens and papers again, because I want you to think of some of Boy's other characteristics. Now, remember, not just that there are no wrong answers in this, there are really, really no wrong answers in this, because nobody's written about Boy before. So, can you think of any ways that Boy might be different in his characteristics to Nim? And maybe some ways that are good, as well as some ways that might not make him so happy. So I'm just going to change it because I'm aware we're running really short of time. In our 3 minutes, jot down 3 words for Boy. Boy's biggest fear, biggest superpower, and one more. Joe, are we going to run out of time?
We've got about 3 or 4 minutes left, Wendy, before I'm going to wrap it up and set everybody's challenge and ask you a few questions. So
okay,
maybe they could have 1 minute to jot down their ideas. So we're writing down the superpower, the biggest fear, and where they came from.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was going to add in one more that you can add later, and you might even want to watch that other little scribe video where we did commonplace objects, because Nim has her little spyglass and her pocket knife and her whistle shell. So let Boy have some super duper possession, a magic key or a bit of rock quartz or a magic pen, just anything. Find a super possession that he rescues from the shipwreck.
Right.
Maybe it's special just because it's what he rescued from the shipwreck.
So, Wendy, when you're creating characters for your stories, is this what you would do to make sure that your characters have depth and they're interesting before you actually set them off on a journey or an adventure?
I think it is, but I don't do it in such an organized way, except that what I've sometimes found is once I work out a workshop, because this workshop was specially made for this festival. And sometimes when I've worked out a workshop, I think actually I could probably, speed up my very, very long process by doing the workshop, because I kind of carry the characters around in my head for a long time, but basically I'm doing all these things. And I might notice that I'm walking. One day I was at a pedestrian crossing in my car, and the woman crossing the road had the most fantastic ponytail. And when she walked, it just really bobbed along and sort of, flipped. And I thought, oh, the character in the story I'm writing, it was Rainbow Street Pets, she's got a ponytail like that. And you can tell her mood by her ponytail.
So the little details matter, don't they, Wendy, with creating a character? So we don't want to go into everything your character ate for breakfast and what they saw on their way to school and they forgot their pencil, but the little details that give a clue about the character that's interesting to show that maybe they're curious or they're brave or they're scared or they don't like spiders or they've come from an island like Madagascar with all these animals, or they're deserted on an island. All these little clues and bits of detail can really add to your character and make your story more rich. I think that's what I'm hearing, Wendy. And I know that's when I read Nim's Island, I can visualize Nim as one of my friends because you put those little clues in there, which I think is a really good tip to take away for our young writers today to really find those little magic moments about the character.
I think so. And that's why all I say about what she looks like is that her hair is wild and her eyes are bright. So I want the reader to choose, if they care, what her hair and eyes look like. Because to me, what's more important is those other characteristics that you see through what she's doing. And sometimes the character's hair or eyes might be very important, but often we don't really need to know. Except in our own heads. It's good to be able to picture them in our own heads. So I have a very clear idea of what Nim looked like before she was a film. And then it was hard for me to see her as anything except Abby Breslin. Then when Bindi was filming, I sort of got my Nim back because I could see that she could be all sorts of different people. And that's really important to have that. As a reader, you have that image of a character in your mind, and as a writer, you have a bit of control over that. And what do you want to tease your reader with? And think about who would be reading your story. You're creating a friend for Nim or a character for your own story. Who's reading that? Who are you writing for? Who do you want to be intrigued by the character you're creating? Now, Wendy, we are running out of time. So I just wanted to make it clear before I very quickly ask you a couple of questions that your challenge for the kids watching today is to now create their own character, to use some of these ideas that we've talked about, some of the ideas for planning that you've seen James set out. I too really love the way James set it out on the paper, Wendy, because it made it very clear for me to be able to plan a character. So you're going to create your own character, maybe draw a picture, maybe write the descriptions around the edge, and then to write that just one paragraph of how you would introduce your character into your story. So it could be a friend for Nim, it could be a character for your own story. And Wendy, I'm pretty sure that you're excited about reading some of the kids' work when they upload them to the Story Starter wall to give the kids an audience and a reader. That would just be amazing. Really, really, I can't wait to see that. Because I've seen all these faces and drawings and seen the busy writing and thinking. So I can't wait to see what they've actually done with that writing and thinking.
There are some great ideas that have popped up in the chat too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you see someone said that the boy could dislike coconuts?
Unfortunately, we have run out of time. So I'm going to end with one question though, because it's been raised a little bit in some of the chat comments I've seen coming through about naming a character. So Claudia from Emmanuel School wanted to know, why did you use the name Nim? And Wendy, you've only got 1 minute to answer this. So I don't know if you can answer it in 1 minute or whether it's a bigger question, but why did you use the name Nim?
It was very hard. She couldn't have a pretty name. She started off Melanie, and I thought that's too pretty. So she needed a short, sharp name. And the Hawaiian word for coconut is niu, N-I-U, but I don't know if that's how you say it. And my publisher thought that sounded too strange. She said, let's turn it around, make it Nim. And once I tried that for about 2 weeks, I couldn't think of her any other way.
Okay, well, that's a really
thank you,
interesting
Ellie.
story. So I think that I'm going to add in an extra little challenge for when you created your character. Think about their name. Does it have a meaning? Are you thinking about what the image that you're creating for your reader just through that character's name? And maybe even when you're reading, think about some of the characters that you know and you've read about. Think about their names, and do you want to use some of those ideas in your own writing? Now, Wendy, this has been amazing. And I can see from all the hard workers, from all the kids around the country, yes, James, I can see from all of the kids who have been madly writing away, who have got big smiles on their faces, that you've given them some ideas of how to get started, how to create characters. I'm sure that all the kids watching have been creating their own characters in their stories, and maybe this is just giving them a couple more ideas to make the characters come to life even more. We are really excited to see the characters that you create. Teachers, there are lots of resources based around Wendy's workshop available for you in the Little Scribe platform, and we'll be giving you more information over the coming weeks about how to upload your kids' work to the Story Starter wall, meaning they get an audience for their writing, and then Wendy can jump on and read and look at some of the characters and maybe see if she writes another version of Nim, whether she'd include that character in her story. So thank you everybody for joining us today. Thank you so much, Wendy. I think we could carry on talking all day, but we need to wrap it up now. And thank you so much to James for drawing this and helping some of the ideas come to life. Thank you everybody for joining us. Let's have a big wave from everybody around the country.
See you, everyone.
Bye. And thank you, James. Thank you, Joe. And thank you all the people for all your wonderful chat things that I couldn't read fast enough. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your festival. Bye.
Tomorrow. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.